Welcome to another episode of Humans with a Purpose. Today, I have a very special guest. She is inspiring. Madiha Sarwar is a single mom raising 2 boys on her own, and she lives in Phoenix, Arizona. She has a story that needs to be told. And when I saw her page on Instagram, I immediately said to myself, I need to interview Madiha because she brings so much optimism and hope. Madiha, thank you so much for joining Humans with a Purpose.
Thank you, Alia, for having me today.
Madiha, tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm a teacher by profession, so I teach. That just makes it good for me because I love my job. I feel like I'm doing something that serves a purpose, which is, to teach kids.
You talk a lot about your boys and you talk a lot about motherhood. What for you brings you purpose?
Purpose has changed for me over the years. When I got married, my purpose was really different. After my husband passed away, I think that was just a turning point for me. And I found myself questioning, why am I here if he's no longer here? And, of course, when I was 10 or 15, or even when I was unmarried or got married after having kids, I never really thought about what's my purpose. I didn't. I was just living my life. But I think after he passed away, I really, really started to question my purpose. And I think thinking about my purpose kind of helped me move forward. So at that time in 2010, I was really focused on my boys because I was the only parent that they had left. And even though I have a very supportive family, but I thought I'm the parent and nobody can take my place. So I started to go back to school. I finished my degree. That was my purpose. I needed to finish school so I can work, so I can support myself and my children. That became my purpose for the next 2 years. And then I started working, and eventually over time, now at this point, I feel like my purpose is, of course, to raise my boys to become good human beings, but also do something for, not just like in my life for the boys, but something big. And it doesn't have to be something big like, for other people, for the community, something so people can find some hope from my story, whether it's writing, whether anything.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you lose your husband?
There was a Air Blue plane crash, which happened on July 28th in 2010, and the flight crashed actually in Margalla Hills in Islamabad. He was a co-pilot of that flight, and he was in the Air Force prior to that, and he had joined Air Blue, and he was just completing 1 year of being in Air Blue, but unfortunately in that crash, nobody survived. So that's how my husband passed away.
So can you describe that moment when you found out about the crash and what was going through your mind?
So at that time, we were in Karachi. My parents and my sister and my brother, they were all visiting. I remember my sister, I heard her crying over the phone, and her husband's in the Air Force as well. So I asked her if he's okay. And because in my mind, I didn't even think about my husband, right? Because he had left the Air Force, and I thought, those things are not going to be happening anymore. But then she told me that Air Blue had crashed, and I think I was just in shock. And even, when people were saying, I think there's so many people that maybe are alive, I don't know. I think in my heart, I think God was preparing me, because I just kind of knew that, he had passed away. My boys were really young at that time. My older one was almost 7 and my younger one was 5. I was thinking about them. I mean, I don't even think at that time I was really crying, because in my mind, so many other things were going on. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to raise the boys? What am I going to do? Because,
Right.
I was completely dependent on him, and we were in Pakistan. And I had moved after my shadi to Pakistan because my family was here in America, and we moved here when I was 10. So I moved back just because he was there. So now I was just thinking everything, okay, I have to go back. I have to start all over. And again, I have, my brother, my sisters, my parents, super supportive. But I feel like the things that I had to do at that time, yes, alhamdulillah, I had their support. But, sometimes you feel that despite no matter how much pain you're in or whatever you have to do, there are things that I had to keep on doing. And I'm glad I did, because that's actually what I want people to understand, that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. And it hurts. And a lot of people tell me that you're so amazing, or how do you do it? I'm not amazing. I have very bad days too. But the fact is that I know that Allah doesn't want everybody to be perfect. He knows that I'm going to be sad on some days. But I think what He wants me to show Him is, despite the fact that I'm in so much pain, I am still moving forward and fulfilling my responsibilities as a mother. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day.
So you said something that was really interesting, and it made me think, which is, when you hear like shocking news, or when you hear news that really changes your world, like flips you upside down, you said something about just doing things. And for you, like, did you ever have a moment to grieve? Because for you, like, I think as moms, we all try to, we want to just protect everyone else. We want to take care of our children. We want to be that safety net. That's the nurturing side of us. And a lot of times we forget to take care of ourselves in that process too. And I wonder, you're kind of just like, I'm just going to keep going. And then later on, something clicked in your mind and you said, I need to grieve too.
You know what? Actually, I think I was very different. I mean, I hear a lot from people who have lost their spouses. They say, I don't cry in front of my kids, or I don't cry in front of my parents because, I don't want them to feel bad or cry. I'm the complete opposite. I cry in front of my parents. I cry in front of my sisters. I cry in front of my boys, because I want to normalize it, especially for my boys, that it's okay to cry.
Yes.
No, it's not bad. I've heard it so many times, Alia, that don't be ungrateful, don't cry, or don't say this, or don't say that. And before I used to hurt my feelings, but now I just ignore it, because I only have one thing in my mind, and that's Allah. What does He want? Is He going to be upset with me if I cry? No, He's not, because we're humans, and we've seen people before us, the prophets before us, when they lost their children or their family members, they cried too. So it's okay. He was my husband, and a very good one at that. And, we had a lot of plans. I mean, we were only married for 8 years. I was 29 at that time. So, the last thing I was thinking is I'm going to become a widow, or I'm going to have to raise my kids as a single mom. And again, alhamdulillah, I'm very, very lucky that I have my parents who are very supportive. I mean, I work, so then sometimes my mom goes to pick my boys up, and then she drops them off. My brother has played a very, very significant role in my boys' life, and he still does. So I'm really grateful for all of that, but I never stopped myself from crying. I want the boys to cry too. So every time and again, I do talk to the boys, but I feel like my younger one is really good at expressing his feelings. But my older one, if I start to talk about his dad, he gets very upset and he has tears in his eyes. So I talk to him because I want to tell him it's okay. If you want to come talk to me, don't think that's going to upset me. But because he gets so upset, so then I stop. But I talk about him every day like nothing has changed. So because that's the only way of them knowing him, because they were too young, so they don't remember much about him. But because I talk so much about him, it's kind of like a normal thing. And, I don't always cry when I talk about him. Sometimes I talk about him with my sister and we laugh. And sometimes I talk about him with my mom and we laugh. And then there are some days that, maybe we cry together, or I cry by myself, and which is okay. So no, I did grieve, but you're right. At that time when I was in school, I didn't have time. So I would be sad, but then I'd be like, okay, you know what? No time to be sad right now, because either you have a paper due, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. With time, people say things get better. For me, with time, I think my patience kind of is running out. because the things that I did back then, I don't think I can't do it anymore, because it just, it hurts me every day. And of course, the boys are getting older. And I think I talked about it on one of my posts on Instagram. He's talked about a lot, and I'm asked about him a lot. And sometimes I don't mind when people ask me, but there are certain things when my kids, when I have to file for a new passport, or when, my
Yes.
older one went to get a license and dad was asked about, and I had to say, oh, he's passed away. And I said it so casually, but in my heart, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, how many times would I have to say this over again? So, but otherwise, on my Instagram page, I understand. And that's why they talk to me about him as well, because they know that it makes me feel better. I don't get sad, or even if I do, I still want to talk about him.
Yes. Especially in the school system too, right? There's so much emphasis on Mother's Day and Father's Day and
Right.
father-daughter dance and, mother-son dance. And I'm sure that for children, especially when that day comes, it must be so difficult, right? And also for you as a parent, it's kind of like rekindling that grieving all over again. Do you experience that?
I feel like sometimes they don't really know what they're missing out on, because they don't remember when they had him. So, like, I know what it's like having a father, right? Because I've grown up, alhamdulillah, my dad's still here, but
Yes.
they were too young. So they really don't know what they're missing out on. They
Right.
don't know what it's like having a dad, especially at this age or when they were growing up. They have very, like, their memories. My older one probably has some memories, but the younger one, not much, not many. Only what I tell him.
It's so beautiful how you allow your kids to see you cry. Because even for me, like sometimes when I get emotional, like, my son will sometimes come in and like I'll say things like, "Oh, it's just allergies," right? Especially for boys, because what you said about boys need to be able to express themselves, and crying is a form of expression. And
Right.
it's not like, you're not a girl if there's labels for boys and girls, but
Exactly.
crying is a form of expression, and it's a release too. And it's great that you're a role model for your boys in that way, that it's okay, you're still strong, you can still
Right.
cry and be strong.
Exactly. And I hope that when I'm not here, or even, when I'm here, when they're a little bit older, to understand, that's what they'll remember me as, that, she broke down as well, and she lost someone that she dearly loved, but she still stood up, for us, for Allah, because, there's some things that we have to do, right? You
Yes.
don't die with other people. I mean, no matter how much you want to, but you have to do certain things. And again, that's where I found my purpose,
Yes.
that's why I'm here. I must have a reason to be here. If Allah left me here, I must have a reason. And like I said, it expanded from my kids. Now it went to like other people. So if I have other people, calling me or telling me how my writing has helped them, then I just, and I don't think I'm amazing. I just think whatever the patience that I do have is all from Allah, because I'm nothing. I thought I was going to die, but here I am 10 years later with you, talking with you. So,
Yes.
alhamdulillah.
And it sounds like, I asked this question of all my guests of who helped you define your purpose, who helped you discover your purpose. And it sounds like to me, you're a very spiritual person, and God, Allah, plays a huge role in your life. Is that true?
Definitely. Definitely. If he did not play a huge role in my life, I don't know how I would have, you know, taken after my husband passed away. I don't know what I would have done. That's what I tell everybody too. I just had someone call me a few days ago, and unfortunately she lost her husband a year ago, and she asked me, what did you do? And I just said, I prayed, and that's what I did. That's how I found peace. Not saying that it's some kind of magic that, you pray and everything is okay. That's not the point. The point is you ask him for his help. And, I talk to my family, and I do feel better, but when I'm doing my namaz and when I raise my hand in dua, and the peace that I feel in my heart, which I feel is a miracle in itself, that I can't see Allah, I can't hear him, yet I feel everything's going to be okay. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to sit down and everything's going to be happening by itself. I have to move, I have to keep going, even if it hurts more, some days than the other days, but he will make things better. And I think that's how I've lived the last 10 years of my life.
That's a very interesting point that you bring up, because a lot of times, in our faith, especially in the Islamic faith, there's this concept of gratitude or shukr. And I was listening to someone today, and he said something very profound that just stuck to me. And for us, like when something comes our way, like when it's, unhappiness, grief, or some mishap in our lives that really changes everything for us, we aren't grateful, right? We ask God, like, God, why did you do this to me, right? Or why is this happening to me? And this person said something very profound. He said, we should always be grateful to God, and that's part of the Alhamdulillah, right? That's the opening
Exactly.
verse of the Quran. At the same time, we have to show patience with man. So with God, you're always going to be grateful. With man, you're always going to be patient. And, you kind of talked about that too, in the sense that I'm sure, like, I think man tests our patience more than anything. And we have to have this sabr. And I wonder for you too, because in the Pakistani culture, there's a lot of like, whenever grief happens, like nobody really wants to talk about it. They want to shove it under the rug and, or stick it in the closet. A lot of times when people lose their spouses due to a mishap, there's this instant planning of like, I want to get you married again. And I don't know if you face that, or if you ever had to deal with those type of cultural pressures, not even from your own family, but just from society. How did you deal with that? What made you strong, or what kind of guided you, or how did you have that patience or sabr with man or women in this case too?
So starting with my immediate family, my parents, and I'm the oldest one. I have two sisters and one brother. I don't remember them ever coming to me or saying anything like that to me. And my mom, I still remember to this day, when my husband passed away, she said to my brother, I don't know what's going to happen to her. She's going to die. That's how much I loved him, obviously. And just the way that he had passed away.
Yeah.
So never. And then I moved over here. So, I mean, maybe people talked about it back home. Some people did say stuff like that over here, but it was only a few.
Right.
And initially it started to really hurt my feelings. Like, it's not a pair of jeans, right? That, oh, you lost one, so you go get another one.
Yes.
Or, people just think, what are you going to do? You're going to be alone. Your boys are going up. But, to me, I don't want to marry someone just because I don't want to live alone. Okay. That's not the point. And I'm very content with where I am today. And I also feel that everybody doesn't have to get married. If it was supposed to happen, Allah will make a way. And maybe that's not for me. And I never wanted that for myself either. Maybe there are times when I might have thought, maybe, it might be a good idea. But then, when you're really sad, you're not in the right frame of mind. So you're probably not making the right decision. So one way or the other, I think Allah guided me and showed me this is what it is. And I am so content and I'm so happy with where I am today, and happy that I have so many memories of my husband. And you're right, we do talk about being grateful. I've heard a lot of people telling me, oh, you have to be grateful, like as if I talk about him, I'm somehow being ungrateful. And I think it's the exact opposite. I think Allah made him my strength, even though he's physically not here.
Wow.
So he did, but all praise due to Allah, who put that in my heart. And even when he passed away, I remember because his plane crashed in Islamabad. That was a Wednesday. And they brought him back on Thursday. I couldn't see him, but his coffin was, in my front yard. And I was sitting there. And even at that time, I was thinking that I need to be patient, because you know what they say, that when patience is tested at the first stroke of calamity, how you react. And I just thought, Lamia, I'm going to be patient. You just give him to me when you have promised. When I go there, when I come there, I want him there, because I know no matter what I do right now, how much I cry, no matter what I say, he's not coming back. So what can I do to get him back eventually, right? Because that's what I want. And of course, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because, we don't realize these things, because again, we don't talk about death.
Yes.
I never used to talk about it either. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, don't talk about those things. And I didn't. But now I do. And I think about it. And because I think about it so much, I'm very mindful, or I try to be mindful of my actions. And I think I've changed. I try to change myself. And, little things that we didn't think, like somebody's calling us and you're tell them we're not here. I mean, that's lying. I don't want to do that. I don't want to lie for no reason. My anniversary just recently passed in July. And I was very, very upset. And I don't remember when I was that upset, because, I'm usually at work and I'm pretty okay. But then again, after a little bit, I prayed, and then it was okay. So, and that's what I want people to understand, that it's okay to be sad. Nobody's asking you not to be sad, but just keep moving forward. Keep on doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes. You mentioned that for you, like, you had a different sense of time before your husband passed away. You had, different mindset. And after he left, you probably really cherished time. And you talked about the phone calls, which we all are guilty of. We ignore those calls, or we tell our kids to tell them, like, oh, we're not home, right? But what are some things that you've changed as a result of this? Like, how do you live your life now?
So before, I think just like anybody, I just, I wanted to have fun. And I was thinking, I want a nice house, and I want my kids to go to a really nice school and good clothes. And I'm still like that. I mean, I still want my kids to, do well in their education and their careers. But personally, for me, it's not as important. Like, I have a house and I'm very content. Okay. I don't think, oh, now after this, I want to buy a bigger one, because it's okay. Or, even with my things, if I lose something, it's no big deal. I just kind of try to tell myself it was time for it to go.
Right. Like if you misplace something, you're just,
exactly.
We have this saying of inna lillahi rajun, right? Which
exactly. And it's so true. And even that saying, I mean, I've heard it so many times, but I never really, really understood, I understood what it meant, but to feel it, and because when my husband passed away, then you're like, oh,
This is in Arabic, which means from him we come and to him we return.
And it's so true. It's so true. So I think that just gave me a different perspective of life. I'm here. I don't know how long I'm here for. So I just try to focus on my relationships, hopefully, because when I leave, or even when I'm here, I don't want people to think about me and then suddenly remember something that I hurt their feelings, or I made them feel bad for any reason. Yes. And as far as things are concerned, I really don't care. I mean, I like good things. I love shopping and I love clothes and all that stuff. And I do all that stuff. But I've realized over time that the happiness that I'm looking for, no matter what I do, I don't feel it. And I'm not going to feel it anymore over here, because I want something else. And that something else is not here. So of course, as long as I'm here, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm going to hopefully be an example of sabr for my kids. So, I mean, God forbid, I don't want anything like this to happen to them. But, other things happen too in life. Maybe you lose your job, or you don't do well on your exam. It's not the end of the world. Okay, you have to work for it, and then inshallah, Allah will make a way. So hopefully,
Yes.
I want them to understand that.
There's a whole concept of resilience, which our society at this point in time, we're all struggling with that, right? Especially with this pandemic and with, just not being able to travel, not being able to eat out, not being able to do the things that we really enjoy doing.
Right.
And we are being tested in a different way. And there's a lot of grief in that too, which is this longing for being able to get on a plane and go somewhere for
Right.
a summer vacation, or being able to go to a hotel or go to the grocery store and buy things
Exactly.
without having to sanitize it, right?
Exactly.
Or even not having to wear a mask. And so for you, it just seems like, you see a bigger perspective. And I think for a lot of people, we're so stuck to this world. We're so attached to this world that we don't see beyond this world. And it sounds like for you are anxiously awaiting for the next world.
I am. I mean, I don't want to say that I'm not grateful for this life.
Yes.
I am. But now
But you see you see something further
I do.
ahead. Yes.
Exactly. Because I know that that's where I am going to end up. I am not here forever, right? So before it's my time, what are the things that are needed to, what I need to take care of? So, I kind of try to look at the bigger picture, but I also try, it sounds cliche, but I try to look for,
the silver lining. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think that's what, kind of gets us through.
Yes, that's so true. And I think that's what life is, right? The whole ups and downs. And
Exactly.
that's why we go to sleep. That's why
Right.
we have that rest. Think about it. If we didn't have sleep, that's another form of gratitude, to be able
Right.
to sleep things off, as they say, because
Exactly.
in Islam, when you go to sleep, your soul dies. And then when you wake up, your soul becomes alive again. And that's a gift in
Exactly.
itself too.
Definitely.
So Madiha, what are you living for at this moment? What's what is your hope?
Obviously, for my kids, I feel like, I have to be here for my kids. And also just to do something good for, the community, or even if I can make one person feel better, I'd feel, I did something. Because, I feel like, yeah, they're my kids, so I have to take care of them. Other than my kids, other than my family, what is it that I can still do? And I think about, there's so many other people who are going through, different kind of hardships.
Yes.
So, if talking to them, or through my writings, or through, some kind of interview or something, if they hear me and if they feel some kind of hope,
yes,
or if it brings them even a little bit closer to Allah, I mean, I'd be the happiest person, I think. And I think that's what I want to do. I really want people to understand that when people pass away, it's okay to talk about them, because I feel like a lot of people don't do that. They don't, because they think either they don't feel comfortable, or the people around them won't be comfortable. And that's something that I have done, because I think that's how I live. I think I thrive when I talk about him, when other people, I actually get upset sometimes at my mom or my dad that you said his name. Why didn't you take his name? Just take his name, just like, So
yes,
to normalize it. And if you cry within that, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. So
I heard something so beautiful. And I think about this all the time, which is people don't die. They only die if their memory dies. And
exactly.
it sounds like your whole purpose is to keep your husband's memory alive.
It is. And if he was here, he probably won't know who I am, because when he was here, I was very shy. I didn't, like to talk to, if it's a big group, I wouldn't talk a lot. And I still am like that. But when I do get an opportunity where somebody says, we want to talk to you, or want to interview you, or know more about you, I never turn them down, because then I know I would have a chance to talk about him. So then more people will know about him. Why not? He was a really great man. He was a great husband, just a, very nice human being. And I want other people to know about him. It's not for me that I am some amazing person. Absolutely not. It's just to keep him alive. I think in our culture, the mindset is so different. And I found out more about that after my husband passed away. I found out how much we lack in empathy as a community.
Wow.
And that's something. I know one of your questions is, what would you want to change if it was one thing?
Yes.
And I think I would ask people to have a little bit more empathy, kindness. I mean, it's not that hard. So, and if you don't have anything to say, just, don't say anything, because words have such a, I feel like
powerful.
they have the power.
What is an example of kindness, or what is an example of where you feel like someone could have showed you more empathy?
Mostly people have been super kind, super empathetic, because I don't want sympathy. I want you to understand that some days
what's the difference?
Okay.
This is a good point, because I do want people to understand this. What's the difference between sympathy and empathy?
Sympathy, according to me, would be somebody who's just feeling bad for another person. So like in my case, if somebody is being sympathetic with me, they're going to be like, oh, poor girl, she lost her husband. They're going to say stuff and then they're going to leave. Empathy would be you try to really, really feel what I'm feeling and then kind of talk to me about it. And that's what my friends and my family did, because I do not want sympathy. I don't want somebody to look at me and say, oh, bichari Madiha. No, I want them to remember me, or when they think about me, they think about that she was resilient, she was strong. And especially after knowing my background, because I met my husband when I was 16 years old, and I have liked him ever since. And even then, the dua part played a huge role, because I prayed, because I was too scared to tell my mom. Because
so you knew right away when you met him at the age of 16 that this is it. This is the guy that I'm marrying.
Sounds very like a Bollywood movie, but I mean, I did. Okay, not saying that he did, but I did. And and I think that's what kind of kept me grounded when he did pass away. That I thought, if Allah listened to me and he gave him to me, then it's okay if he took him away from me. And if I'm patient, then he will give him to me again. I mean, that's his promise. And I truly, truly believe that. And I think that's what kind of kept me grounded at that time. But again, obviously with time, there are days that you're like, oh, why did this happen? Or, I really can't understand the good in it. But then when I hear from people that I don't even know, that I've never met, and the things that they say to me, and how, they find peace or they get comfort, then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm also here so people can maybe learn a little from me.
It's interesting. And this is something that has always bothered me, specifically about Pakistani culture. It doesn't really happen as much. It happens everywhere, but I think this happens more in Pakistani culture, where there are a lot of shifters. When you're having a conversation, and if you say like, oh, I just got diagnosed with cancer, right? This is an extreme example. Like, oh, really? You did? Well, I know so-and-so who had it, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And they did this and they did this, and they tried these remedies. And so the conversation shifts back to them. It becomes all about them. And what you're saying is that empathy is let the other person talk and just be there, be that listening ear, and don't make it about you or your uncle or somebody that just let it be about them.
Exactly. And because I've had to go through some phases where I've heard, oh, you need to be grateful, look at so and so and so.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? Again, it used to really, really bother me. I used to get super upset, but I think I've trained myself to think, you know what? If they can't be empathetic, if they can't really understand, then I really shouldn't care about what they have to say.
Yeah.
So I stopped caring. I might have to kind of, remind myself from time and again, because of course, it gets to you.
Yes.
And that's exactly what it is. That when I'm talking about my grief or my struggles, first of all, I'm not being ungrateful, and it's not that I'm not belittling somebody else's problems or their grief. Okay, I'm just talking about myself, because when somebody talks back to me or writes to me, maybe it'll make me feel better. Yes. Or they'll understand it's like we're humans, right? So treat us like humans. If Allah doesn't expect some things from me, then why are you telling me to do something that He doesn't expect out of me?
Right.
So those things, those comparisons, comparing the grief, comparing the problems, that's
Yes.
just, I think, it's just something that's out there, unfortunately. And I think people really, really need to look into or be mindful of what they're saying.
Yes, and paying attention. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from a place of like wanting the other person to feel like, oh, I care about you and I'm trying to make things better, but actually you're making things worse.
Worse, exactly. It's true. It's
Yes.
true. You know,
Like you think
or
you're being helpful, but you're not.
they're not. Or,
Yes.
you know, they give you a certain time frame, and then after that time frame, everything's supposed to go back to normal.
Right.
But you know what? Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Very.
I don't know about other people, but I'm pretty sure that they feel the same way. But I feel that when you lose someone who's been so close to you, then your life changes. Okay. And that's okay, because when you change, that's okay. Then the people who love you, who really care about you, are going to accept you for what you are. And I hope and I try to change for the better. So,
Right.
and I was recently reading the 40 Rules of Love, and there's this one quote in it which says, every love story or every friendship leads to an unexpected transformation. And if you didn't change before and after love, that you haven't loved enough. And I
Yes.
read that and I thought, this is amazing, because I feel like I've changed as well. And yeah, I had to lose him to change to this where I am. But you know what? If it makes me hopefully a more mindful person of Allah, and if it makes me get closer to Allah, then it's okay. Then the loss was worth it. Definitely worth it.
Wow. That's amazing. And the introspection and the self-awareness that you have, Madiha, is inspiring to me.
I mean, I try every day. It's like, you have to work on it every day, because of course I am a human, so I make a lot of mistakes. I mean, I get upset at my boys. Sometimes I get, upset at my mom, because the thing is, there are days when I do feel like, what is going on? Okay. And I think you take it out more on either your kids and my poor mom, because I think nobody else is going to really understand it.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm very lucky that my mom has been very patient, because she understands I'm not, of course, where I want to be, but I try. Forgiving people, because before I was like, no, if somebody got me upset, and I was like, okay, whatever, but now I try to be more, it's okay. It's okay. Even if I think that they were wrong, I try, I would try to forgive them, or I would make
Because
dua that,
because you think life is so short to begin with, right?
right. And again, like they say, if you want Allah to forgive you, then
You have
how
to
are you not forgiving? Right?
exactly,
So, and of course,
exactly.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. He's the most forgiving. So we are nowhere like that, but at
Yes.
least you can try. You can try.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Madiha, what is your final message?
I would say just to have that connection with God, with Allah, because it has helped me so much. And I hope and I pray the same for my boys, that they have this love for Allah in their hearts, because you know what? Nobody can put it in there for you. You have to feel it from yourself. I mean, my parents never said that to me. You have to love Allah. Okay. It came. So now I make dua for my kids, because you know what? Once you find that, then no matter where you are, at the end of the day, things start to feel and look better. So even on the days I feel like, why this is happening, or nobody cares about me, you have those days, because your husband or your wife, you guys are partners. So
Yes.
when one of them is gone, the void is very real, and the pain that comes along with it is very real. But I feel like that connection with Allah keeps me grounded. It keeps me sane. If I didn't have that, then I don't know what I would do. So that's what I would tell people, to just, have that connection with whatever makes you feel better.
I heard something so beautiful and it just made me stop in my tracks. And often we say things like, I'm trying to find God. You're not trying to find God. God is not something that you find. God is the name of waiting. And for you, it sounds like God came to you. He was always there. He's always with us. But he came to you when your husband passed away, and he made himself known to you. Would you say that's, is that something that you feel?
Kind of closeness that I feel, I didn't feel before. I always had I had yaqeen that if I'm asking him something, he is going to listen. So my faith, my iman never wavered. But the way that I am with him now is because I think after losing him, I think I found refuge in his words. I found comfort in his company. That's what I did. So even now, if I feel upset on days or I'm just having a hard day, I do talk to my mom, but eventually I go read namaz, I go read Quran, and I think I do. And the most amazing thing is, it can be the littlest thing, but I feel like he's never returned me empty-handed. And even when I do get a little upset, then again, he does something, then I'm like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And, it's not like he comes down. Sometimes it can be in the form of my parents or the form of my brother or my friends would send me.
It's through people. It's through people.
It's through people. It's through people. And just having that peace and having that faith in my heart I think that's all I need. And again, I always say that, your faith, your iman is not something that stays the same all the time.
Right.
It goes up and down,
it wavers.
down, and that's okay. It wavers, exactly. And Allah knows that. So we should be okay with that too. But as long as, again, you can go ahead and then do the things that you're supposed to do, I think you're going to be okay.
Thank you so much, Madiha. This has been such a amazing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it.